Good evening, Keto family. Welcome to the Keto Pro Facebook Q&A. We've had a fantastic response. Some amazing questions have come in on the Facebook group, which we are going to go through this evening. I am joined with Sara. Sara's got a little story of her own to tell you, so I'll let her give a little quick introduction. And don't hold back, Sara. Make sure you say everything that I want you to say. I know you get a little bit shy sometimes when it comes to talking about yourself, but tell everybody who you are, what you do, and maybe give a little explanation about where or why you are where you are and what's brought you along this journey.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Thanks for the invitation, and good evening, guys. Yeah, most of you have seen me probably in and out the shop, or you've seen me as part of the Facebook group where I'm the admin. So I'm Sara Davies. I've sort of joined Rich in collaboration with some of the details with the Keto Pro because I'm really passionate about, well, the lifestyle, as it's literally changed my life. I've worked in the NHS for 30 years, and I also work in Swansea University. So I'm a neurophysiologist in the day. That's the day job. And I'm program director for a degree in Swansea University where I teach the neurophysiology degree, which I love doing. But, you know, this is another passion of mine, is that I've been able to, as I mentioned, change my lifestyle around, make myself probably as healthy as I've ever been, considering I'm nearly 50 and I'm probably healthier now than I was in my 20s. I've lost nearly 6 stone in weight in the last 18 months and reversed my type 2 diabetes, which I've had for many, many years, been injecting myself on medication, etc. Reversed my high blood pressure, which obviously was just a symptom of my insulin resistance as well. And yeah, I feel amazing. So, you know, I want to share that with people to be able to encourage them now on their journeys, because we've got lots of people who are in our Facebook group, lots of people who come to the shop and come and have a chat with us and are wanting to have the same change to make themselves healthier. So it is inspiring, and hopefully I, you know, help those people along, because I think that's what I'm enjoying about this journey now, Rich.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to embarrass you a little bit now, because while you were just talking, I have sent myself a quick email. I wish I had a better picture actually, but
oh no.
Right, which screen am I sharing there now? Can you see the right one?
Yeah, you've got the one with the thank you cards on.
Awesome. So these we had printed today. So that's you on the left.
Yeah.
And it's you on the right as well, obviously. So that was a 6 stone fat loss to date, Sara, is it? Or?
Yeah, it was 5.5 for ages. It's been 5.5 stone, but I'm just, oh my gosh, you've got another photo. Get rid of Yeah, remove the photos, Richard. That's quite enough.
I told you I was going to embarrass you, didn't I? Hey, that's nothing to be embarrassed about. That to me is inspirational. And I think, do you know, part of my journey, seen me go through a similar process of being diabetic and the weight loss.
Yeah.
And it's taken me down this path of competing in order to promote the business and the lifestyle. But I've almost ostracized myself a little bit because I've taken it to an extremity, and people almost look at it as being unattainable and out of reach, whereas it isn't. Anybody can achieve what I have, and you have done exactly the same. So I'm sure you won't mind me saying that a few years ago you were unable to walk a mile without being fatigued, and now you're running 20 miles plus. So this is literally not that you're an average person by any means, but anybody can make these changes with health improvements. Anybody can adopt this lifestyle at any stage in their life. And yeah, I think that's something to be proud of. I think that you hate me showing people that picture because I pull it out all the time.
I know.
But you should be proud of that. You should be really proud of it. And I think that is inspirational. And I think a lot of people within the group are going to find it inspirational and motivational. So you should be proud of it.
Thanks. I'm proud of the journey, proud of where it's brought me basically, and what I can do now. I never thought in a million years, like I'm running London Marathon in 3 weeks, and I never thought in a million years that I would be doing anything like that. So yeah, anything is possible. And I think people who come in and they think, oh, I'm never gonna lose that weight. And people I've put on the machine on a weekend and they're like, and I'm like, well, I was heavier than you, and your target weight is not as much as what I weigh now. So you can see that difference. It's attainable within a year, because that's why I lost the 5.5 stone literally in a year. But it's just been the extra little bit. And I don't think I'm not obviously trying to lose weight now. It's just that I'm toning and like changing shape as such, but it's not, I'm maintaining my weight. So, and I would just continue this diet lifestyle change like for the rest of my life, basically, because there's no way I'm going back to, having carbohydrates and grains and seed oils and all the things that, raised my insulin resistance and made me ill. So, this is the way forward. And I think more and more people are seeing that and opting to choose the healthy lifestyle, which is obviously the way to go. And from like an NHS point of view, I suppose as well, it's amazing because those people are going to be, in charge of their own destiny. They're making themselves well by living that healthy lifestyle, and hopefully not being a drain on our service that's, totally under resourced anyway. So that's really, really good. So yeah, I'm ready.
Excellent. There we are, firing on all cylinders. And not the usual monotone Sara that we're used to.
Oh, I know. Sorry. And I hate my own voice, so sorry. I'm going to kill you.
Private joker, isn't it? Yeah. I often call Sara out for talking like a robot because she's monotone. You can never tell whether she's happy, sad, or angry. But there we are. You're full of it this evening anyway, so well done. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Nice to see you coming out to play. Right, let's crack on with some of these questions then, shall we?
Yeah, so we had some great questions from the group, and the first one is from Andrea, who says, hi both, since adopting the keto lifestyle, which by the way she thinks is awesome, I'm wondering, as my main goal is for weight loss plus health benefits, at which point should I be worrying about excess skin, and how can I stop this? Thanks a mil. Andrea's like, she's like, soul, life and soul of the party as well. So yeah, I think it's important. Andrea's been on this lifestyle change now for the last 7 to 8 weeks, and she's doing awesome, absolutely awesome. Every time she comes in Thursday evening to be weighed, measured, and she's always, she's been doing her exercise and everything, so it's really, really good. But I think for Andrea to not be too concerned about the skin being too loose to start with, because she is on the ketogenic diet, which she is starting to implement as well, some intermittent fasting, and they both go hand in hand. So I think, fasting, when you are doing weight management by just eating, fat and losing fat rather than lean muscle mass, you're not going to have the stretchy skin so much. So that's really, really good. And we know that fasting aids the autophagy of the cells. And I know, Rich, you're going to probably go into more science detail about that. But I have been doing some research myself, and I've been reading lots of things. As I showed you the other day, I've got a new book on my Audible that plays in my ears, so it tells me all about autophagy as well. So yeah, I was quite surprised that it actually was, it means eating yourself, which I was, gobsmacked about at the time. But yeah, so you basically, by fasting or not putting food in your body for so many hours, it can repair your cells by eating the bad bits and getting rid of the waste products from it, isn't it? So it's really important. I think another aid that I have been using myself for my sort of skin to be tightening is the collagen. And I use the Keto Pro collagen supplement. simply because it's got both types of collagen in it. So it's got the marine collagen and the bovine collagen. I know that I only want, the marine collagen for skin, hair, nails, etc., things like that, because that will, help that. But I also need the bovine collagen for my digestive tract and to keep my digestive system nice and healthy. So, and I think when you're, on a ketogenic lifestyle, you need to have both types to be able to maintain health in all of your body, not just the one type, isn't it? I did some research on the cells, the blastocytes in our cells, to see, why they stretch and get really old and saggy, like when we're old and old age, and it's because they have too much waste product in it, and you need these blastocytes to have taken up the protein that we're eating to make the collagen, isn't it? So, and they get a bit overworked probably as we're getting old. Is that right, Rich? Do you want to? You can probably add loads of that to that. But it was just that it's nice that I've been able to do a little bit of research about it now as well.
Yeah, I often get criticised for over sciencing stuff up, don't I? But
yes.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. There's a really good podcast that we did recently with Ben Azadi, which we're going to be posting soon, regarding fasting and autophagy. And he explains it way better than I can. But you're right, it's self-eating, cellular repair, regeneration. The body will use old, sick and dying cells and recycle them into new, younger, stronger, fitter, faster ones. Now, when it comes to stretchy skin, what I noticed, and you've probably noticed the same as well, after the weight loss, I had a lot of stretchy skin and stretch marks around my body. And it was only recently when somebody asked me about my stretch marks and saggy skin, did I notice that I didn't have any. Even stretch marks had gone. And the reason is that the body will recycle amyloid proteins through autophagy. So it's taking the amyloid proteins from the scar tissue and stretch marks and recycling them. So it will catch up. And I know it does, because when I compete on stage, my body fat percentage is mega low and my skin is mega tight, almost vacuum packed. But after I'd lost the weight, I had the saggy skin, but it takes time to catch up. Collagen is a brilliant source, as you say, the Keto Pro collagen, but natural sources, natural good sources are things like bone broth and the like the stringy bits within the meat. The bits that you don't like. The bits,
yeah, I know, I don't like it. I could never eat it.
The bits that I love those stringy bits. The bits that people tend to cut around, they are very good for us. So those are natural sources. Even bone, is a type of protein, and like I will even eat the chewy cartilage and the chewy little pieces of bone in the chicken, as long as it doesn't hurt my teeth too much, obviously. But yeah, it's again, I'll supplement because I eat a lot of meat, so to keep the methionine glycine balance in check, I will supplement with collagen, but I do eat a lot of those stringy bits from the meat as well. But yeah, I don't think it's anything to worry about. This is a lifestyle. The skin will tighten, and I don't think that'll be an issue moving forward.
With regards to the intermittent fasting for somebody like Andrea who's just starting out on this, would we be recommending a certain, length of fasting? Like, I know that I read somewhere, I was reading about hormones at the time, because me, I like to read about menopause because it's the time of my life. But I read that like women of a certain age should only be fasting for like 14 hours a day. But then you read elsewhere that there's like 16 and 8 hours, or, is there any, thing that you should be doing, or is it just trying to work out what's best for your body?
Everyone's different. I think there are a few set of rules which will be highlighted when we release this one with Ben Azadi. But I tend to use the general rule of thumb: eat when you're hungry. So I fast throughout the night. There are benefits to fasting in the day opposed to doing it through the night, but it's easier to fast throughout the night. You have your last meal at say 8 o'clock. If you don't eat until 8 o'clock the next day, you've done a 12-hour fast. Now 12 hours is the minimum really for autophagy. We want to aim for around about 16, if not longer. I'll quite regularly throw in a 24, 48 or a 72. I'll do a 72-hour fast a couple of times a year. But listen to your body. I mean, especially if you're new to keto, eat your food, eat when you're hungry, and fast when you can. being ketogenic elicits a lot of the benefits of autophagy anyway. When we look at why we fast, those benefits occur from being in a ketogenic state anyway. So they work hand in hand, but I think it's a case of just listen to your body, do what you can for now. And with a bit of luck, when we launch this podcast with Ben, he can go into a little bit more detail.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I hope that's answered Andrea's question for her, and no doubt she'll give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down when she comes to Fat Club on the Thursday, yeah, to tell us how we've done. So the next question is from Leighton. So Leighton's got a bit of confusion regarding supplementing with the BHB, so the beta hydroxybutyrate. He uses it in his coffee with MCT before big training, sort of hours of training, or 4 hours plus of endurance training. But he also uses it in the morning with MCT to mimic his fast, he's saying. He wants to know if there's anything less than 3 hours of training. He's been reading that the BHB should be used post-training. So he's wondering if he should, use it after training upon completion. So we know that there's obviously some benefits to that, and I supplement with BHB in my coffee in the morning I do a fasted run. So I like, for example, as you mentioned earlier, I did my 20-mile run fasted with just my coffee and BHB, MCT in my electrolytes. So it does power us for that, doesn't it? Because the ketones obviously produced by the liver will bypass that other system. Sorry, go on.
When it comes to the ketones, they're a difficult one. There seems to be a big divide in the community in regards to supplementing, as our body creates it naturally. But for, there is a reason to take it. I take it for mental clarity and for mental performance. I also take it to gain weight, and I use it to lose weight. There's different mechanisms involved in regards to, losing weight and gaining weight and athletic performance. I don't want to go too deep into that because I think that's a whole other podcast just on that. I used to take the BHB for strength training. I've since come away from that now and use it in the way that Leighton is talking about, which is for recovery, because the ketones, the beta hydroxybutyrate, will lower inflammation and aid with recovery. And I think the benefits for recovery are probably better for that in regards to performance, apart from athletic performance, endurance exercise. There's a lot of research to back up the supplementation of ketones for endurance, but not so much for use of the aerobic glycolytic energy system. A keto-adapted athlete can upregulate the glycolytic energy system naturally, but supplementing with ketones in an aerobic state seems to inhibit or reduce the body's ability to perform at high levels. So there is an argument there for strength training to supplement maybe with carbohydrates before strength training. But Leighton is talking about endurance and training for 3 to 4 hours at a time. So, we've seen it with the athletes that we supplement with and train with. It improves performance massively. At least it seems to. And we know that ketones, beta hydroxybutyrate, will help lower inflammation, glycation, and oxidative stress. So it's going to allow the body to heal a lot quicker. And we've seen it time and time again with the athletes. They'll do an extensive run or a triathlon or whatever it will be. And normally they'll be out of action for a couple of days after. And what we find is through living a keto lifestyle and supplementing for recovery, that they're out training again the next day. So yeah, certainly use it after training. You don't need an awful lot. If you're using the tubs, the tubs that we do, 1 scoop is plenty. You don't need, it's not a case of more is better. I wouldn't use the raspberry bomb for recovery because of the caffeine content. So, I mean, that would be performance before, but you don't need an awful lot. Even I think half a serving is going to help with recovery. So pop that in to help with recovery. And that should make a big difference. I've started implementing in with my training post recovery as well.
And me, and I do find, as you said, that both Mark and myself, if we've had a heavy training day, then we'd have a decaf coffee in the evening with a BHB to recover, so that we're recovering while we're sleeping as well, because obviously that's when our cells are doing all that recovery work for us. And in the morning, yeah, we're not aching at all. Even after a 20-mile run, you know, my legs are not aching at all. So I find it's really, really useful.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. The things we see the guys achieving, incredible. And we're going to see more of this on the weekend, because it's Ironman weekend.
Yeah, definitely. We can't wait.
Super excited for that.
We are. So hopefully that's answered Leighton's question. So we've got another question off Kyle, who's obviously one of the athletes who went to the transplant games that you he came down for a cake off me, and he did really well. He won some medals, 3 medals I think he came home with, so he did really well. But Kyle has asked that his father's been told that he's diabetic type 2. He's also had a stroke last year, and he's got a large cyst on the brain. How would the ketogenic lifestyle be for him? So I think if we talk about those things separately, it would probably be better to try and like separate them out, even though they're obviously interlinked, if that's okay. So I'm just going to mention before I hand over to you, Rich, for all the science, that obviously we know type 2 diabetes is due to the buildup of insulin resistance over many years, causing too much inflammation in our body and an abnormal response on our insulin hormone as a reaction to the excess glucose from the refined carbohydrates that we're trying to avoid now on our keto diet. So we know that type 2 diabetes can be reversed. And I think, well, we know this because apart from myself and you and lots of other people that come into the shop or online, that people are reversing their type 2 diabetes all the time, and it's making them feel so much better. So, you know, Kyle, it's obviously a really good lifestyle change for your father-in-law, and Rich will, I'm sure, expand on the science behind that.
Yes, let's take a look. I'm going to share a slide with you now. I think I'm trying to find some bits while you're throwing all this at me. But I mean, we know how easy it is to reverse diabetes through a ketogenic lifestyle. Show this chart. It's probably a chart you've seen a million times. It's one of the ones that I present during the talks. There you are. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. So this is a chart that shows how the body keeps glucose in check by increasing insulin. So the pancreas will increase the rate of insulin that is secreting to keep that glucose in check. So even though we look at like diabetes and stuff, and you know, we think, well, we may not be diabetic. I've got nothing to worry about with these carbs, but behind the scenes, we're all insulin resistant. And one of the ways to tell if we're insulin resistant is like that central adiposity, so fat around the midsection. And if we have an overhang over our belt, over our trousers, or our skirt, we are insulin resistant. So we're on the path of insulin resistance. So insulin is being released by the pancreas and keeping blood glucose in check. So when we go into the doctors and checking for diabetes, for example, it may be coming back negative because the doctor is checking for blood glucose and not checking for insulin. But behind the scenes, the pancreas is working overtime to upregulate the amount of insulin that it's secreting until it can't upregulate anymore. And then it's at this point that we're diagnosed with pre-diabetes and diabetes. But this happened 10 to 15 years prior, and it's caused through insulin resistance. So when we look at insulin resistance, it's a product of the stimulation of insulin through glucose or carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, when we look at the macronutrients, carbohydrates have the biggest response on blood glucose. Protein is a lot lower, and fat is almost non-existent. So it makes sense if you to adopt a ketogenic lifestyle by dropping the carbohydrates and increasing protein and fat, that we're going to elicit a much lower response of insulin. And that's going to steer us clear of diabetes and insulin resistance. And insulin resistance doesn't just happen in the body, it happens in the brain. So when we look at neurological diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, all of these, dementia now is being dubbed type 3 diabetes, because it's insulin resistance in the brain. The brain can literally be swimming in a sea of glucose, but if it's unable to uptake the glucose for energy, then the cells in the brain are not getting that energy to function. This is where ketones come in, because ketones, beta hydroxybutyrate, will breach the blood-brain barrier and supply energy to the brain. Being ketogenic will increase BDNF and lower a GABA response, so brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a neurochemical that's responsible for the growth and maintenance of the brain and how the body sends and receives signals within the body. So it's that neuroinflammation caused through insulin resistance. So adopting a keto lifestyle, or at least going low carb, is going to see a massive reverse in anything to do with the brain and the body. And as far as the strokes go, I mean, the neurological side is probably more your field of expertise, isn't it? Being the neurophysiologist.
Yeah, but I just do like diagnostic testing, but it's been interesting, like research, because obviously that's the brain is like what I'm interested in, and it's what I do for work. But so when I find something regarding, you know, keto diet and neurological disease, I'm like, oh gosh, I have to read this now because it's exciting, you know. But stroke, as in like part of cardiovascular disease, it's obviously a disruption of blood supply to the brain, and you know it could be various ways of doing that, either, you know, an ischemic stroke or a hemorrhage stroke, if you like. So you're either got a blockage where part of the brain is being starved of oxygen, or has a hypoxic area where there's no oxygen, or the blood does, you know, burst up from a blood vessel and has bled into a certain area, for example. But in both of those sort of scenarios, if you like, there can be cells which have been starved of oxygen or hypoxic, and when they haven't got oxygen, they quite often haven't got glucose for the energy as well. So one way that, you know, they're treating stroke as well in other countries. I've been reading about some research papers. Obviously, don't quote me on this because it's just information that I've been reading, all from credible medical journals, mind. You know, without the oxygen, the brain cells can die, and without the glucose, which is, you know, that comes from the standard diet that they would normally be eating. But when they are put into ketosis and intermittent fasting as a treatment for post-stroke rehabilitation, then the brain is upregulating those ketones and using it as energy much quicker, because cells that have got hypoxic damage can't metabolize the glucose as well, so that they're finding people are recovering better by being on a ketogenic diet and using the ketones as their energy source instead of glucose, which, you know, that's quite fascinating. I found that really interesting. I know they use it in a lot of critical care scenarios as well to like preserve the brain. So they don't give them glucose. They you know, put them in a ketogenic state to be able to, you know, help the brain out. So no, it is really really interesting from a stroke point of view. There's thousands of papers regarding ketogenic diet and other neurological disorders, as you mentioned, particularly Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and or any neuroinflammatory process, which, like Kyle mentions, that his dad has got a cyst on the brain as well, which can have a lot of edema or swelling around it. But, you know, we know that ketosis will reduce inflammation. So I think if it reduces inflammation everywhere else in your body, we know it'll reduce it in the brain as well. So I would say there's a good chance that you know, it's all going to be positive for him to move on to that lifestyle change. You know, obviously we're not doctors. This is our just opinion that we're given by, you know, by reading these articles, and you know, Kyle pops in here quite often for a chat with us anyway, so it's all good. But hopefully, you know, you've treated clients with other cystic issues. So it would sort of be the same framework, I imagine. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, the production of ketones or beta hydroxybutyrate will block a pathway called NLRP3 inflammasome, which is responsible for a lot of the inflammatory signaling within the body. So restricting carbs and flooding the body with beta hydroxybutyrate sees a massive reduction in inflammation. And this is another reason why athletes, coming back to Leighton's comment, will see an improvement in recovery, or an increase in recovery as far as time goes. But yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, ketones create more energy per unit of oxygen compared to glucose. The damage, the oxidative stress the ketones produce is a lot less. So when we look at like oxidative stress, we look at something called NAD plus to NADH. So we look at the NAD plus to NADH ratio. When we process glucose for fuel, one glucose molecule will deplete the NAD plus. So it'll lower the NAD plus to NADH ratio. Now we need a positive ratio. We need a more NAD plus. So one glucose molecule will use 4 NAD plus, whereas BHB typically uses 1. So it increases the efficiency at a cellular level by 400%. This is a lot less oxidative stress, less free radicals, smashing around the body and the brain, causing inflammatory signaling. So I think there's a massive upside to going low carb. And even if you can't go low carb, or adopt a keto lifestyle, there's certain things that maybe you could take out, such as the grains and the seed oils in particular, because we know that these damage cells and cause glycation, oxidative stress. And I know this is slightly off topic, but when it comes to Parkinson's, for example, wheat germ agglutinin from grains has been known to travel up the vagus nerve and lead to Parkinson's. And again, it follows under that umbrella of dementia. So it's problems of the brain, neurological issues. So it's brain health is super important, isn't it? So keto moving forward, I think, for me, in everything, everybody that I work with sees a massive improvement in health and well-being from all sorts of angles, because inflammation and insulin resistance are the key drivers of almost every metabolic illness that we know of. So when we take those away, we see big improvements. So definite, I'd like to see make a move into a low carb or ketogenic lifestyle, and we'll see if that makes a difference. I'm sure they will.
Great. Do you want to stop sharing your screen again for this one now? Because you might have, I don't know if you got any more. I
didn't realize I was still sharing.
Yeah. I've got my glasses on. I still couldn't see you on the screen somewhere because it's so small. I can see the big arrows, but not you.
Oh my God. What are we like?
So next question is from Adam, who's he's been keto for a little while now, but he switched to carnivore after having a consultation with yourself the other week. He's found that he's struggling with spikes in his sugar level, and he wants to know, is he right in assuming that this will subside once he's adopted to his new way of eating? I think Adam is still in shock, basically, that eating meat, cheese and eggs and having a protein shake is really good for him. But we assure him that it is. He's doing really well. I think what's good to note here is that Adam is type 1 diabetic. So he's having these sugar level spikes, but Adam doesn't obviously produce his own insulin, does he? So it's he's eating a lot of protein, which, as we know, if you eat protein, it's essential for life. Yeah. Fat, if we eat fat, it's essential for life. And carbohydrate isn't essential for life, is it? Because we don't need it, because we can make our own. We make our own glucose from the protein. Yeah. So we eat 100 grams of meat, and we can turn that into like 56 grams of glucose, should we need it for like exercise, etc. So I was just thinking, when I was reading this question earlier, is that what's happening with Adam, is that he's eating this protein and the gluconeogenesis is turning it into glucose, but he hasn't got that insulin to feed back.
Yeah, obviously as a type 1 diabetic, Adam doesn't have the ability to create his own insulin. So insulin management is key, but I'm sure, after speaking with him, he's all over insulin management. Again, carbohydrates not essential for life, but glucose is. We know of at least one cell in the body, the erythrocyte, or the red blood cell, that needs glucose. It can't function without it. The other argument is for the brain, but it's never been proven that the brain needs glucose because it will quite readily use beta hydroxybutyrate in the presence of BHB, and in fact, it will preference BHB over glucose. But we still need it, and the body will create it. But gluconeogenesis is demand driven, so it will only create glucose when the body needs it. And even though Adam is type 1, he still needs that glucose. He's always going to have an increase in glucose within the blood. Protein will still elicit through leucine, a slight increase. But I mean, it's essential. I don't think it's anything to worry about, and anyone with good insulin management can stay on top of that. I think, would it subside? Don't know. It'd be interesting to see, but I don't think, I mean, when Adam speaks about again, these increases, I don't think they're going to be incredibly high. It'd be interesting to chat with Adam actually and see how high they're going, because I don't think it's going to elicit a massive response anyway. I think the response is going to be minimal, and well within range. And I should imagine, now that we've taken out a lot of the carbohydrate-rich foods, that his dependency on insulin is going to be massively reduced. He'll always need to take it. He'll always have to take it. But the frequency and the volume that he needs to take is going to be massively reduced. So there's going to be improvements there either way. Is there going to be a reduction? Quite possibly. I guess we'll see. I don't know is the honest answer, whether it's going to reduce over time. But one thing for sure is dependency on insulin, on a daily basis, and the amount is going to reduce. And along with that, it is health and well-being for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that I was chatting to Adam, well, both 2 weekends in a row now. He's been here for a little while. And we've been chatting about his diabetes, and yeah, he said that to me, that he's using less and less insulin and going longer in between. Perfect. And he feels so much better as well. So no, it is great to see him. Yeah, you're catching up on Saturday, so it's.
I think the other thing to remember as well, and this is going sort of off the path of type 1 a little bit, but we look at like this insulin response or glucose levels. And coming away from being type 1, obviously, because this is out of the type 1 remit, but as a not type 1 person, I want my insulin response to be sharp. I want it to rise quickly and come back down. What we don't want is this continuous elevation of insulin where it's creating this mountain top. We'd rather see a peak. So if we are insulin sensitive, we put carbohydrates in the body, it increases insulin and it spikes, but we want to see this recovery because we want insulin to be doing its job. We want to be insulin sensitive. And so if we look at it from the perspective of Adam being a type 1, we still want that maybe not so much a spike, but we don't want his dependency to be level on insulin all day. We don't want him to have to be injecting with insulin all day. So living a keto lifestyle, he's going to be eating less frequently because his body's getting all of these nutrients, every vitamin and mineral. We look at protein as a macronutrient, but protein it contains micronutrients. It's the most nutrient-dense food on the planet. That coupled with fat, as you said earlier, essential for life, proteins and fats. We're getting everything we need. Now that we've removed the grains, the lectins, the body's now absorbing all of these nutrients. So what he'll find is he may eat once or twice a day rather than eating 3, 4, 5 times a day. So this dependency on insulin, the amount of times that he's got to put it in to keep that glucose in check is going to be massively reduced. So there's sort of a similarity there, isn't it? Whereas, my body will do this and then it's done because I don't eat very often throughout the day. I'm insulin sensitive, so my insulin isn't elevated for a long time. But had he been eating throughout the day continuously, he'd be injecting and this insulin would constantly, and he'd almost do this, have this effect where his his dependency for that insulin would be continued throughout the day. So definite carnivore, I think, is certainly the way forward. We look at fiber and things, but I mean, you know my opinion on fiber. That's probably a talk for another day. We don't need it. Not in the sense that people think we do anyway. But yeah, that's a podcast for another day, I think. But yeah, I don't think it's anything to worry about, and it'd be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks to get some feedback from Adam and see about his dependency on insulin, and to see if that response is lowered over time.
Fab. We've got two questions which are not very similar, but they're both about sort of building muscle, essentially. So I've got a question from Maria, who is asking a question on behalf of her son, I believe it is, who's trying to build muscle whilst on a calorie deficit. Other people are telling him, obviously, he should be carb loading to build muscle. He's worked out his macros using an online calculator. Macros appear very, very high to me. They're saying he needs to eat 285 grams of fat per day, 210 grams of protein. He weighs 64 kilos. I know 210 grams of protein. That means he's eating 1,000 grams of meat, essentially, because if you're eating 200 grams of protein, you have to times that by 4 to get the amount that you're eating. Yeah, so that is a lot of meat, or a lot of protein that they've saying to eat. So he's limiting his carbs to 70 to 100 grams per day. So just bear that bit in mind. The other question was, hang on a minute, of Leslie. Leslie's doing a one-to-one lifting program over the next 3 months to gain muscle and strength, and what macro adjustments are needed to ensure growth. Does she need to be in calorie surplus? So, Maria's asking about calorie deficit, and Leslie's asking about calorie surplus, both to gain muscle with macro nutrients.
Okay.
Your area of expertise, I am not commenting at all. Apart from the fact that I'm shocked about the level of protein, obviously, because we know that like 100 grams of pork has 22 grams of protein in it. So to get the amount that they're saying on that calculator is like insane.
Yeah, but I'm carnivore.
Yeah.
I probably eat more than that, I'll be honest. Do I need that much? Probably not. We need about 0.5 grams per pound of body weight to maintain, give or take. And these are rough figures. They'll be different for everybody. We need around 0.82 grams in order to build minimum. Ideally, 1 gram per pound works best for most people. And I'd say maybe up to like 1.2 grams. So you said he weighed 64
kilos.
So 64 kilos. So let's work that out now. So 64 multiplied by 2.2, so 140 pounds. So he's 10 stone. So at a pound, or 1 gram per pound, that'll be 140 grams. So that should be plenty. It sounds like, yeah, he's doing 1.5 grams, which is also fine. I mean, I probably target about that much, give or take, of protein. But I am carnivore. I don't eat any carbs either. And I think you said he's consuming some carbs as well.
Yeah, 70 to 100 grams of carbs, 285 of fat. Obviously, fat and protein essential. I think his other people influencing or advising him, as telling him to carb load to gain muscle as well. But he's trying hard on.
Okay, so let's look at the protein first. Protein, top end of what he needs, but that should be fine. He could get away with doing a lot less. As I say, 1 gram would probably be plenty. 1.2 maybe optimal. 1.5 a bit excessive, possibly, but I don't think that's going to cause any harm. Where it can cause harm is when it increases the methionine to glycine ratio. So glycine will be depleted because it's excreting or keeping methionine in check. And that's where the collagen, as we said earlier, comes in play, or the connective.
Or the gristly bits,
and this is why I eat a lot of gristly bits, because that's all I eat, and organ meats. So protein, okay, a bit high, but not excessive. I know people who consume a lot more anyway. The fat, you want to match gram for gram ideally. So it seems excessive on the fat. I certainly wouldn't be putting extra fat in.
No.
What he wants to try to do is eat the foods in complex. So when we look at nature, we look at an egg, for example. Egg contains both protein and fat, and roughly the same amount of grams. So an egg will contain like 6 grams of protein and 5 grams of fat, give or take. A piece of meat is roughly the same. When we look at cheese, everything in nature, a chicken breast covered with chicken skin, it all contains both protein and fat. So eat things in complex. He doesn't need to add additional fat. So what I would say there is eat the foods in complex, eat them as they come. So that's one thing. Protein, fine. Fat, you can probably reduce. Do you need to be in a caloric surplus? Now, this is a debate that many would probably rip me apart on, but I know that you don't need to be, because I have lost a lot of fat while building muscle, and I've proved it recently in the shop with clients that we've been working with, who we've been taking through competition prep. We have stripped body fat and we've enabled them to still build muscle. That said, it's not optimal. If your goal is to build muscle, ideally you want to be in a surplus. But a surplus to what degree? These people take it to an extremity where they're putting in 1,000 calories per day more than they need to. A surplus of 50 calories, is still a surplus, So we don't need to be overloading. 3,000 calories seems super excessive. So that's the second part. Now, when it comes to carbs, this thing about building, needing carbohydrates to build muscle. In fact, I'm going to share my screen 2 seconds. Find my button. I've lost it because you stopped me from sharing earlier. Put me off my stride.
Sorry.
So this study looks at the co-ingestion of carbohydrates along with protein, and it shows that basically, despite an increase in insulin, this did not further augment any muscle protein synthesis. The co-ingestion of carbohydrates with protein did not increase muscle protein synthesis. This study shows the same. Carbohydrates with the co-ingestion of protein did not further augment muscle protein synthesis at all. So carbohydrates do not build muscle. They do not build muscle. They're not required to build muscle as long as we are consuming adequate protein, and he certainly is consuming adequate protein. What does improve muscle protein synthesis is the co-ingestion of fats and protein, which he's getting plenty of. He's getting plenty of fats and proteins there. So the carbs are not building muscle. Now, there is an argument there for leveraging the muscle, because what carbs will do is carbs will fill the muscle with glycogen and it'll pull water into the muscle and allow leverage. So it may make, it will make the muscle look bigger, and it may add extra leverage for training purposes. So that water and leverage in the muscle may allow him to lift heavier weights, which could, in theory, stimulate, further growth. But again, that's up for debate. I don't eat carbs, and I don't have an issue building muscle. At least I don't think I do anyway.
Have you got an embarrassing photo of yourself to share to show us that?
No embarrassing pictures of me today.
I'll get you back for that.
And you don't have any there, so you can't show.
I have.
But carbs are not required to build muscle. We need protein. In fact, we need leucine. Leucine is the most anabolic of the amino acids. We need leucine, and we need. I think it's something like 3.1 grams of leucine to stimulate mTOR. So it's mTOR activation that's going to build muscle. So when it comes to building muscle, we want to activate mTOR, but we want to do it in such a way that it isn't eliciting this IGF-1 response, which carbs will do. So consuming carbohydrates will increase IGF-1, and IGF-1 will be maintained for a long period of time. And IGF-1 has been linked to all sorts of illnesses and diseases, particularly cancers and tumors. So we can activate mTOR through training. So training will activate mTOR, and protein will activate mTOR. Now, what we want to try to do is live to the mTOR reset. So if we activate mTOR and allow 3.5 to 4 hours, mTOR will reset and we can activate mTOR again. But typically, if we are eating every 2 every 2 to 3 hours, which a typical bodybuilder will do. This activation is up continuously and maintained, but it's not that builds muscle, it's the activation and the reset. So we're going to be getting that reset. Now coming back to the talk I did with Ben Azadi recently, he pointed out that the average lifespan of a bodybuilder in America is 12 years less than average in the States. Now, the average lifespan in America is low anyway, compared to other regions in the world. So to be 12 years under that, and it's because of this continual activation of IGF-1. It isn't because of mTOR. It's the continuous activation of IGF-1. So what we want to do is activate mTOR without IGF-1. So take the carbs out, activate mTOR by training, activate mTOR through eating every 4 hours. So we could, in effect, activate mTOR by training fasted in the morning. That's one activation. We could wait 3.5 to 4 hours. We could eat protein, some steak or some eggs. If we get it from, we need that 3.1 grams. So, we'll have to work out how many grams of leucine is in an egg, for example. A typical protein shake would contain enough. A small size steak, something like 4 to 6 eggs. So, those sorts of remits. But we want to activate mTOR every 3.5 to 4 hours, and that's going to elicit more muscle protein synthesis. And again, the co-ingestion of proteins with fats. Coming back to the other comment about strength training, again, all these are relevant there. We need protein and fat to build muscle. One of the biggest misconceptions within keto is that we need 70% of calories from fat. I think there's a time for that for therapeutic purposes. Even higher, amongst patients with cancers. But typically what I tend to do is put people on 70% of calories from fat for 2 weeks, for no other reason other than to show the body that the body has another energy source. So we're changing energy sources from glucose to fats, and we're giving this readily supply of energy so the body can adapt quicker. Beyond that, I increase protein with everybody to around about a 50-50 ratio with protein fat, give or take, maybe 45, 55. And my thoughts on carbs generally is super low. Although I am constantly experimenting. So, I do experiment with carbs pre and post training. And I'm in the middle of another experiment actually with putting carbs in pre-training. But it isn't 100 grams. It's nowhere near 70 to 100 grams. I'm talking 20 to 30 grams of carbs pre-training. So I'll keep you updated on that. I'll let you know how I get on. But yeah, that'll be interesting to keep an eye. People quite often think because I'm keto that I'm anti-carb. I'm not anti-carb. It's just a case, as a society, we are metabolically inflexible. And I think there's a place for carbohydrates if we are metabolically flexible. But as a society, we're not. We are no longer metabolically flexible. And this overconsumption of carbs has a negative effect, especially when we look at bodybuilders who take it from pastas and oats and things which are full of lectins, which are going to cause the body to negate the nutrients found in the protein. So typically we're consuming pasta with chicken. The lectins in the pasta are going to bind to the microvilli lining the gut and prevent the absorption of those aminos and vitamins and minerals. And that's going to lead us to over-consuming and lack of nutrients, to enable us to repair. But yeah, I think both of those will answer both questions really. We need the protein, at least 0.82 grams per pound. A gram per pound seems a simple one to work out. 1.2 is probably the top end. And as we were saying that Iron Gentleman's using 1.5. I don't think there's an issue with that, as long as he's getting a lot of connective tissues or supplementing with bone broth or collagen. But methionine glycine balance is something to keep an eye on. And again, that mTOR activation, we don't need carbs. We can do it through our fats and proteins, particularly red meat. So when we look at leucine, leucine is in much higher quantities in red meat compared to chicken. And we would eat a lot more red meat. We'd eat a 500 or an 800 gram, steak, whereas a chicken breast may only be like 130 grams. So even, per portion, we're consuming more leucine as well. So more red meat. Mince meat is a cheap way to get it in. Mince meat is still red meat, so it's a good cheap way to get that in. And you can choose your fat quantity there. The butcher will do it at 5%, 10%, 15, 20, 25%, depending on the goal. But you don't need to be in an excess surplus either. So again, you know, you don't have to. There was this, you know, when I started training, it was a case of I was told if it's not nailed down to eat it, and that's not the case, because I gain weight by over consuming, and I know I've told you before that I consume in doing a bulk around 5,000 calories per day, but I can stay lean. My body fat is still sub 10% on 5,000 calories a day, but from carbs I will gain fat at between 2,000 and 2,500 calories, depending on the source, because it is the source of the calories that's really important. But I'm predominantly meat based, as you know, meat, eggs, fish and cheese. The occasional Greek yogurt and protein shakes and our Keto Pro bars, but I'm 95+% carnivore. I don't eat carbs generally, you know. But that said, as I say, I am experimenting again, not for building, but more for supplying the aerobic glycolytic energy system. Try spitting that one out. Yeah, for that one. So I'm experimenting based off the back of some more research that I've come across. So, you know, it's it's a constant evolution, isn't it, of learning, because I mean this is even though it's our natural metabolic state, this is new in regards to the science, and new science is coming out all the time. And what I believe to be 100% accurate 8 years ago, you know, has completely changed. You know, I limited my protein. You know, I ate a lot of my greens, and I'm not saying greens are bad. That's again a topic for another time. But meats are certainly very, very good for you and shouldn't be feared anyway. But yeah, I've gone off on one, but I think I hope
you have gone off. You usually go off on a tangent, so I'm going to stop you there now before you carry on all night.
Yeah.
We got one more question off James, who's lovely guy who has recently started keto. He wants to know, well, it's quite a comical question, really. First of all, cheese. How much is too much proportionally, and are some cheeses better than others? My argument is you can never have, you know, too little cheese, because I love cheese at the minute. I had cheese as a starter, cheese with my main, and cheese as dessert, I think, for lunch today. But secondly, do you guys still have keto kryptonite foods? And if so, what are they? Do you wander enviously past people at the seaside eating fish and chips or something, and walk into a shop and think, oh, I could smash that bar of dairy milk? But I know where he's coming from briefly, because he's relatively new to keto, but after doing it for, you know, well, maybe 2 years now, I think, and obviously you've been doing it for years and years and years, but for doing it for just 2 years, I think that if I walk past a fish and chip shop, I think, vinegar. I like the smell of vinegar, but I don't like to eat it. But I wouldn't go in and buy fish and chips. I've just got no interest in it. And the same with dairy milk. I had boxes of chocolates for Christmas and boxes of chocolates, you know, for my birthday, which sat in my living room on the table for months and months and months and months unopened. And in the end, I gave them away because I had no interest in eating them at all. So I don't know what your kryptonite food is, if there's anything you would walk past and think, but
do you know what? In the beginning, I used to crave everything that everybody else does as far as, you know, the carbohydrates go. When I was working as a buyer for a electrical engineering company, whenever I would go out to site, I could not go there without stopping and getting a burger from a burger van. Burgers were my kryptonite. I still love burgers. I love all food. I love junk food. I'm a lover of food. But, you know, I don't miss them. I don't crave them. I love the food I eat. I eat, you know, fatty cuts of steak with eggs, fish and cheese every day, king prawns and mushrooms cooked in butter. I don't miss anything. I certainly don't crave anything, but it is a process you go through initially where the body will crave these things. And once you go beyond that, I think you tend not to look back. It's funny you should mention about the chippy, actually, because I went to pick my little girl up from school before they broke up for summer holidays, and I walked past the chip shop next to her school, And I thought exactly the same as you. I thought, oh my God, that smells absolutely stunning. But not one part of me wanted to go in and buy any. I wouldn't have any intention or inclination to go in and buy fish and chips or sausage and chips or whatever it may be, because I love the food that I eat. But initially, when you begin, as you know, it takes up to 12 weeks, if not longer, 12 to 16 weeks to adapt. Those cravings, your body will almost do everything it can to trick you into getting your carb fix, your sugar fix. Because sugar's a drug and it's more addictive than heroin. Your body knows that those chips is sugar. We may not look at it that way, but it is all carbohydrates breaking into sugar. So your body is going to crave sugar in any form it can. And chips smell awesome as well, don't they? So, those cravings are there initially. But no, I've gone past them, and I eat lots of cheese as well. It's tums and tums of cheese. Yeah. Yes, I think you can eat too much. I think you can eat too much of anything.
Especially if you're cutting, I suppose. Especially if you're trying to lose weight, yes. I suppose you're limiting those fats, and I'm not trying to lose any weight. I'm trying to maintain. So I eat cheese on cheese, but if you are trying to lose weight, and we say to those coming to Fat Club, don't we? Then first thing you've got to cut maybe is perhaps your double cream. If you've stunted your weight loss, or then try cutting a little bit of cheese if you're eating too much, isn't it? So, but yeah, I know that that is something we have to look at.
Yeah, so I use double cream and cheese for bulking, and the double cream is the first thing to go when I come to competition prep, and I'm mindful of the volume of cheese that I'm eating. I'll actively eat less. Now, the beauty of cheese is that it contains lots of fats and proteins fill us for longer. So it is difficult to overconsume on cheese. I think you'll eat so much and your body will feel full. Yeah. But I don't know if you used to be the same, but I wouldn't have a trigger within my body. I would continue to, if it's in front of me, I would continue to eat. So if it's in front of me, I'll eat it. But generally, I mean, if you're going to make your food and you've made some steak with cheese, once you've finished your meal, you're satisfied and you're full. Yeah. So the short answer is, yeah, of course you can. You can eat too much because it's full of fat, it's full of protein, and if you're struggling to lose weight, then that's the dietary fat is something to look at. Double cream is the first protocol, yeah, because the caloric value from the fats in cream is so easy to overconsume. Cheese is number 2 on the list for me. But things like lectins, to be honest, the nuts that we consume are probably having a bigger impact than on fat storage. And again, that's probably a podcast for another time, but the lectins are going to cause more fat storage than I think we're going to get from the cheese. So if weight loss is a goal, actively limit the amount of cheese. And as you say, the double cream that you're consuming. And yes, you can overconsume. As far as types go, natural cheese is best. I find mature better. Try to avoid processed cheeses. Stay away from the processed cheeses. Natural cheese is where you want to go. I tend to gravitate to mature. But yeah, avoid sliced cheeses and any processed cheese, but natural cheese is the way forward.
Fabulous. Well, that's all of our questions we've got, Rich. We've been through them all, I think. So it's really, really good. So have we got any closing statements? So
no, do you know what? I think we probably took a little bit longer to do that than we were expecting.
Well, you can talk.
I can talk. And you surprised me, you can talk as well. And not as monotone as I thought you were going to be. So
I don't know whether I feel insulted or not.
I think I'm going to get a clip next time you see me.
Yeah.
I'll have a black eye to match my bloody scar on my head. I bumped my head this morning getting out of bed. But, so hence the...
Well, you're not having any sympathy now.
No, so I'll have a black eye to match that, I think, later. No, there we are. All good. Some amazing questions. Any ones that we have missed that have been added to the chat since we'll cover next time, I think.
Yeah, we'll have another look.
There's some awesome questions. Any more questions, pop them in. We'll put another post up anyway. So we'll do another post so we can do another one maybe next week or the week after. But if the response is good from this, then it's something, I'd like to continue regularly, I think, as long as you're happy to do so.
It's been fun. It wasn't as bad as what I was expecting. I was a bit nervous tonight, but it was all right.
Good. There we are. I could tell we couldn't shut you up. Brilliant. There we are then. Awesome. Thanks for coming on board anyway.
No problem.
Look forward to the next one.
Great.
Good evening, guys. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye. Yeah.